Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Chargers Analytics with Arjun. And boy, do we have some things to talk about today. So I'm recording this on Tuesday morning, the day of the trade deadline. And right before I was about to hit record, I just found out that Melvin Ingram was going to the Chiefs, unfortunately. So we know the Chiefs are going to slightly improve their pass rush. I don't think Melvin Ingram's the same player he once was, but nonetheless, he should be a helpful addition to that team. But like I said, it is the trade deadline today. I'm recording this at 10 a.m. So at 4 p.m. in about 6 hours, we'll know if the Chargers made any moves. And that's something I'm going to talk about today. So by the time you hear this video, probably either Tuesday night on Patreon or Wednesday, Thursday, whenever on Spotify or YouTube, you'll know what happened to the Chargers. And I'll kind of break down why I don't think the Chargers are going to make any moves. And then you should understand a little bit about why they don't make any moves. They haven't made any moves. We're also just going to be talking about, the Chargers so far in 2021. We're about 7 weeks in. So we're kind of at that midway point where we know what the Chargers are going to be, even though I think there's a lot of uncertainty around LA right now, just because it started off really hot and now we've had two really bad losses that, I think people are getting or overreacting a little bit to, but it's something that we should have expected and something I predicted actually 3 weeks ago, saying I did think the Chargers were slightly inflated because of things that eventually will regress to the mean, and they have. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So let's just start with the Chargers in general. So this is from PFF, right, where I intern. We have a strength of schedule model that we use. So per our model, the Chargers have actually had the third hardest schedule to start the year. And we knew this. Like, we knew we probably had the hardest, we had like a top 2 hardest schedule, weeks 1 through 6. We have the third hardest schedule, weeks 1 through 7, or weeks 1 through 8 at this point. So, we're 4-3 with a lot of things that were supposed to be against us, with the new head coach, offensive coordinator, new pieces on that offensive line. We're 4-3 with the third hardest schedule in the league. And the best part is we have the 5th easiest schedule going forward per PFF's model. PFF's model also has us making the playoffs 58% of the time, winning the AFC West 26% of the time. I do think the 26% is kind of low because it does project the Raiders to make the playoffs, even though they have the 5th hardest schedule going forward. And so think about this. We had the 3rd hardest schedule up to this point. The Raiders have had the 5th easiest schedule. We had the 5th easiest schedule going forward, and the Raiders have the 5th hardest schedule going forward. So I do think, the Chargers have done pretty well given how hard the schedule has been to this point. But like I said, we as a fan base knew how good this team was, and all we needed was the right coach. And that coach showed himself. Brandon Staley showed how good he was the first 5-something weeks. And then, they kind of fell off a little bit in the Ravens and Patriots game. And I do think they're still a good team, but we do need to talk about some of the statistics behind it. So let me just talk about the Chargers have 17 dropped passes. So all this talk about Joe Lombardi and, is he a good coordinator or not? Like I said, he wasn't as good as people thought. And one of the disappointing things for me as a fan was, like, in my video, like, I'm not even an analyst for a team. I think it'd be awesome to get to that point. But in my video, I said that the Patriots ran, a good chunk of cover 2 last year when they played the Chargers. Like, they played almost an equal number of snaps of cover 1, 3, and cover 2. And for Justin Herbert to go on the stand and say, oh, we didn't expect cover 2, even though, like, they played that against you last year. Yeah, they've been a single high safety team running cover 1 and 3 this year, but they played cover 2 last year. And for you to not expect that is, it is concerning. And I wonder if it's the inexperienced staff, like Kevin Koger, guys like him, Derek Foster, Shane Day, Joe Lombardi, like, haven't really had as much experience in, like, an enhanced role. Like Frank Smith also, but, like, he's more on the offensive line, so I don't know how much he has input in the game plan. But yeah, it is a bit concerning that they didn't expect a lot of cover 2. right? And another thing that, I've been trying to think about, like why the Chargers offense hasn't looked that good. And like in certain situations, it feels like Joe Lombardi isn't scheming up good things. The Chargers have not been good against the blitz. In 2020, they had about a 0.148 EPA per play versus the blitz. Remember, EPA stands for expected points added, and it's a good measure of efficiency for an offense and defense. The Chargers ranked like right outside the top 10 versus the blitz per EPA per play. In 2020, they have a 0.002 EPA per play versus the blitz, ranking 17th. So right about average, slightly below average versus the blitz. And like a 0.146 drop off is pretty big. Like it's a big drop off. And the reason for that is because I don't think Lombardi's done a good job scheming up things for Herbert or scheming up things in general. Like I talked about this 2 weeks ago. Like the whole idea of having this matchup based offense is basically saying, okay, we expect our receivers to go win one-on-one matchups, right? Like we think that they can win their one-on-one matchups a majority of the time. Well, the Chargers have the 7th most contested targets in the league, the 7th most. And so that's telling me that, okay, Joe Lombardi is saying, okay, Keenan, Mike, you go win a route. Even if you're not open, we're going to get it to you because we believe. And okay, that's a strategy that could work, but like you're relying so much on players winning one-on-ones. The defense is eventually going to win. And when they do win on those first and second downs, you're left with these third and longs, which the Chargers just can't, it's not sustainable to convert third and longs every single drive. And so, those are some things where I'm like, why, like, where has the Chargers offense gone? And it's just been a lot of contested targets. The average depth of target for the Chargers, they rank 21st right now at 8.4. 8.4. Like ranking 21st in average depth of target is crazy to me. Like the first 6 teams, the Ravens, the Bills, the Saints, the Raiders, the Broncos, and the Rams, all 6 are 5 of those 6 teams minus the Broncos are playoff teams, and they rank first in average depth of target. Now, I'm not saying you have to chuck it down the field every time. And in fact, teams are playing a lot of too high coverages versus guys like Herbert and Mahomes to take away those deep balls. But it just seems like there's no aggressiveness anymore. And I don't know if that's on the players. I don't know if that's on Joe Lombardi, the offense. I don't know who it's on. And I think that's the issue, that we really don't know who to blame, even though it's a collective effort. But when I'm watching that Patriots game, I'm like, it doesn't seem like there's any creativity. And, it's just a lot of spot concepts, like dig concept. Like I feel like Shane Steichen schemed players open better. That was my opinion. And obviously Lombardi can change my opinion as the season goes on. But, there does need to be some improvements. And one of the things is they need to stop running these damn wide receiver screens, guys. I'm sorry. Like at PFF, my fellow intern, Connor McQuiston, found that wide receiver screens are actually not an efficient play. As you can see, they are the least efficient screenplay out of the 4 screens you can run, such as tight end screens, running back screens, slot receiver screens, and outside receiver screens. So for Herbert to just be throwing these wide receiver screens to Mike Williams or Keenan Allen on first and second down, have they worked at all? Like literally, has one wide receiver screen worked? No. I do think the running back screen game has been effective, like a little bit, but it hasn't been where it needs to be. I just don't get why they try to emulate the Packers when the reason why the Packers wide receiver bubble screens to Davante Adams work so well is because Aaron Rodgers has the quickest release in the NFL. Justin Herbert has a windup. So when he winds it up and he's throwing it to his receiver, the cornerbacks can read that. So they break on the ball as he's winding up. With Rodgers, it's just drop back and snap it. And so the corners don't have enough time to react, which means Davante Adams has all the space to work with, but it's not the same for Herbert. And I think they're forcing that when they shouldn't be. Now let's go to the defense. And the defense, I thought, played pretty well against the Patriots, all things considered. So in this graph, we're looking at defensive play action. So we're looking at EPA per play when when the offense runs play action versus a defense's rush EPA per play allowed. So as we all know, the Chargers have the worst run defense in the league per EPA per play. I thought they played a little bit better with Justin Jones, but the Patriots still ran for 140 yards. I don't care that it was like 3.8 yards per carry. The Patriots were able to get 140 yards on the ground. But what I found was teams that are bad against the run are also bad versus play action. And I feel like this is something that should be common knowledge, right? Like if you're bad versus the run, that likely means your defensive line is bad, which means your run linebackers need to help out in run fits. So your linebackers on that second level have to step up when they see a handoff because they know their defensive line is not able to get a push. So if they're playing those run fits and they're not able to diagnose that it's a play action, they're going to get beat over top by crosses every time. And that's what the Patriots did versus the Chargers on that last drive. They had like a couple first and second downs, and they ran 2 play actions where Jacoby Myers, I believe, and I think it was Kendrick Bourne on the other one. They just ran a nice play action where they had the crosser come behind the linebackers. And because the D line isn't that good, the linebackers like Tranquil and Kaiser had to step up. So they're going to be worse versus play action until they fix this run defense, right? So yeah, that I thought this was a cool graph. If we go forward, the Chargers are actually really good on non-play action plays, believe it or not. Like they have the 3rd best defense versus non-play action plays, while they are below average when a team runs play action against them. So I thought those 2 graphs, here's the first one with play action and rush EPA, and here's the second one with play action on or EPA from play action versus EPA on no play action plays. Now, let's just do a quick review of how the Chargers defense has progressed this season. So as you can see, the bars represent the percentile. So the first bar is the 75th percentile, the second bar is the 50th percentile, and the third bar is the 25th percentile. So the Chargers have had 3 performances over the 75th percentile, but they've had pretty much 4 performances below the 50th percentile. So it has been a little bit hit or miss. And the problem is the 4 best offenses they've played, they've had below 50 percentile defenses that game. So, I misread or I miscalculated, how good I thought this Chargers defense was going to be. I did think it had the potential to be a top 5, top 3 unit. Haven't really showed that. They're barely a top 10 if you consider them that. They're right around league average in my opinion until they can prove that they can stop the run, because they're just going to get gashed on the ground. And like my previous graph showed, once you get gashed on the ground, it makes running play action so much easier for opposing offenses. Now, the offense, like I said, has been good, but they've fallen off these past 2 weeks. So they've had 2 performances over the 75th percentile, which were important because we needed those performances to win against the Chiefs and the Browns. But they've had pretty much 3/4 performances below the 50th percentile. And even that Raiders game, like they played well. They had a couple drives where they looked really good, and then a couple drives where the offensive line didn't hold up, where the play calling didn't look that good. All right, guys. So last thing I want us to go over was looking at Justin Herbert's passing map versus Matthew Stafford. So I'm sorry that it doesn't have the names, but the left passing map is Justin Herbert, and the right passing map is Matthew Stafford. The major problem I think I have with Lombardi is he's forcing Justin Herbert to make a ton of throws outside the hashes, which Herbert has the ability to do. Don't get me wrong. Like he has, one of the best arms in the NFL. He can make any throw in the book, but throwing over the middle is much more efficient than throwing to the sideline. And it should be like a common knowledge thing, because like you're throwing to the sideline, you need to put more velocity on the ball. There's a higher chance it gets picked off, which we've seen. And that's something that McVay hasn't forced Stafford to do. If you look at like Stafford's like distribution of targets, there's a ton of stuff over the middle. While for Justin Herbert, all his stuff is concentrated to the outside. Like look at all of these targets and completions he's been forced to throw outside the hashes. While Stafford has had an MVP type season taking those routes over the middle. And to me, this is the biggest thing that the Chargers need to improve. And I think there's a lot of throws to the outside, which Herbert could make, but it's tough and it's not as efficient as throwing over the middle. And I don't know if it's a design thing or they're just taking away over the middle stuff by playing too high coverages versus Herbert, but it hasn't worked the last 2 games. And that's something they have to improve on if they want to be contenders this year. And yeah, so that's what all the data stuff I had to talk about. Now let's talk about the trade deadline just a little bit, because I know this video is a little bit long. The Chargers will not make a move in the trade deadline. That's my prediction. And like I said, I'm recording this at 10 a.m. Trade deadline's in 6 hours. The reason for this is they're not a team built to win a Super Bowl. And if they were, they would be making a move, in my opinion. The reason I say they're not built to win a Super Bowl is they entered the season with Storm Norton as their backup swing tackle. And teams that are going all in don't do that. Like, teams that are going all in have quality depth at important positions where the drop off is heavy. Offensive line, cornerbacks, edge rusher, and receivers. The Chargers are too deep at receiver with Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. They have no depth on that offensive line. They really don't have any depth at that cornerback position. And so they're not all in this year. If they started 6-1, I would be pushing for them to go and trade for someone, but they're 4-3 coming off 2 of the worst losses of the season. And they've gotten exposed by 2 really good head coaches with really good defenses. And so they're not ready to go all in. Akeem Hicks, that's a pipe dream. Fletcher Cox, that's a pipe dream. If you expect them to go if they trade for those players, I will eat my words and I will issue an official apology. But they are not ready to go all in this year. And that's okay. Like, they are legit playoff contenders. They are not Super Bowl contenders. And as much as I hate to say that, that is what the data shows. That is what the truth is. And, this offense isn't, like, the expectation wasn't that this offense was going to be a top of the league offense in year 1, right? Drew Brees never picked up the Saints playbook until 2 years into his Saints career. So with that being said, I had a conversation with Brad Spielberger a couple weeks, months ago. And we talked about this all-in idea, and teams don't go all in until the 3rd year of a QB's rookie deal. Look at Josh Allen, traded for Stephon Diggs. Look at Kyler Murray, JJ Watt, AJ Green. They don't make all-in moves until the 3rd year of a QB's rookie deal, which is next year. So I don't expect the Chargers to be active at the trade deadline. It won't surprise me if they make a move, if someone gets cut, but don't expect them to trade for anyone. And if you're hearing this and they haven't traded for anyone, now you know what. So that's going to wrap it up for today's video. I hope you're able to learn a little bit about some of the data behind play action stuff, rush EPA, and ultimately my thoughts about Joe Lombardi. And yeah, with that, as always, bolts up.